Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what is making the headlines with the columnist Carol Malone and the editor of the Courier, David Clegg. Welcome to both of you. I know you're with us through to just before midnight. To the front pages then, let us start with The Guardian. It leads with threats of further disruption from airport staff, teachers and the NHS. Terminal chaos, warns the Metro, as British Airways workers voted to strike today. The Telegraph reports on Boris Johnson's push for green fuel to be relaxed, which has experts warning it could affect the PM's net zero petrol pledge. The Daily Express has a European judge criticising the lack of transparency at the European Court of Human Rights. The Times leads with the PM saying that Prince Charles should keep an open mind on Rwanda. The Courier leads with Nicola Sturgeon quizzed on Dundee murderer Robbie McIntosh's parole hearing. And The Star has this story on household tech product Alexa resurrecting voices. Well, a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. So let us return to our guests then, Carol Malone and David Clegg. Welcome to both of you. We'll talk about the by-elections very soon, but let's kick off with the papers, most of them leading on the strike threat, moving into other areas. Carol, what did you make of what the British Airways workers have decided to do?
Well, before I tell you that, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you for months. Hello.
Likewise. Very pleased to see you both as well.
I have much more sympathy with the airport workers than I do with the RMT workers. They've been messed around. Thousands of them were ruthlessly sacked in the middle of the pandemic, whilst the airport and the airlines were taking vast amounts of cash from the government. They were being fired, they were being made redundant. And the airlines are trying to get them back now. And of course, many of them have found other work. They found better paid work that doesn't, have 3 a.m. shifts to be dealing with. But, the ones that are left are taking the brunt of the chaos. And that's really not fair. This is 100% down to the airport bosses. They were not prepared for the restrictions being lifted. They didn't hire enough people back. And the people that they're trying to hire have got to go through all sorts of security restrictions. And of course, it's taking time. So this is 100% down to the bosses. And the poor staff that are there are having to deal with the abuse, the anger, the frustration of thousands and thousands of people who are trying to go on holiday. This chaos has been going on since Easter. They've even had, I think the boss of Manchester Airport she resigned because of the chaos at Easter, because she hadn't made sufficient preparations. And it's happening all over now.
Yes, you would always, I suppose, max out your potential impact in your choice of strike timing. But the airlines issue is fascinating, isn't it, David? There's been an accusation that old contracts have been gone and people have been re-employed under new terms, that these BA staff want their money back when they had their wages effectively docked in those difficult times. I guess from the airlines' point of view, they lost a lot of money. That money isn't there for them. And even now we see that actually travel is difficult for people.
I think that the travel industry is certainly facing an uncertain period still, and I can understand why people running airlines would be slightly concerned about what the future holds given the last few years of COVID. However, I do think that there's a great deal of credibility in what the GMB are saying about their members. These are people who are generally low paid. The majority of them are female, and during COVID, during that period of great uncertainty for the travel industry, their pay was docked by 10%. And at the time, I guess that there was some cover for that, given everything that was going on. But the fact that that is continuing now, when they're being asked to work normally and things are recovering, and I should say that the better paid executives in these companies' pay has gone back to normal levels, that doesn't seem right to me. So I do agree with Carol that there is, I think, a great deal of sympathy for these people and what they're trying to achieve with this strike. Now, it is going to cause a great deal of chaos. It's being timed for the summer holidays. I think Heathrow could be brought to his knees because we're talking about 700 people, and we know that British Airways has so many flights out of Heathrow every day. And that, of course, is going to be layered on top of the continuing train strike, which I think we will see if that dispute is continuing. I've been feeling it fairly heavily this week. There was precisely 0 trains from Dundee to Edinburgh or Glasgow today, with the strike being on. So, and I guess if that dispute is continuing, we will see that being targeted for the school holidays and for the summer holidays again. So it does look like this industrial unrest is going to be continuing.
Yes, we're going to return to that in just a moment. We've just got those ballot boxes arriving in Wakefield. We are keeping a very close eye, obviously, on these by-elections, which will be fascinating through the night to see the swing. Certainly Labour really pushing, as we heard there from our correspondent in Wakefield, and then this Lib Dem resurgence in the south. But as you can see, they are going to verify these votes and then start counting them. We're understand that we might get an indication around midnight in Wakefield. But, I mean, really, the question is whether this has any impact on Boris Johnson, or has he put those torrid times behind him, Carol?
Well, he's already said he won't quit if the Tories lose both of those seats. But I think it's going to be a very good indicator of just how toxic people see he is. The people that matter now, we've had the confidence vote and MPs have made clear what they think about Boris. The thing that really matters now is what the general public think, what the electorate thinks. And we're going to find out that tonight. I was listening to your reports before. It is true. The Tories only had something like a 3,500 majority in Wakefield. It was not, but that would be very indicative for all the other red wall seats. A lot of the Tories seats that they took from the red wall were with very small majorities, and if they lose this one, the fear will be that they'll lose the other ones. But I think even if Labour win Wakefield, unless they win it by more than a 5,000 majority, that's still not good for them, because that shows that the people aren't necessarily going to go back to Labour. So I think for both parties tonight, they'll be on tenterhooks. But, I think what this is going to do, basically, this is going to start another Tory revolt if he loses both seats. And there are more people going to be likely to be calling for him to quit tomorrow. Like I said he won't. But, it's just going to start the whole thing of going. This is going to keep happening with Boris, It's every time something like this happens, the people who hate him in the party, his critics, are going to say he has to go and he's toxic.
Yeah, and just very quickly, David, there are some big questions that might be answered tonight. And one is, were those Labour seats lent to Boris Johnson only for Brexit? And was it just for that? And secondly, can the Liberal Democrats be the sponge that they used to be for dissatisfied voters, which has an impact in Scotland as well, I know. So, what should we take from these by-elections?
So I think the second point there is more interesting and probably more important about what happens with the Lib Dems. If Labour don't win Wakefield after everything that's happened in the last few months, with the context of a Tory prime minister who's been the first prime minister to be found to have broken the law in office, with all the Partygate sagas, and with the context of why this by-election is happening, for Labour not to put in a good result here would be a disaster for them. So they have to win this. There's no doubt about that. I think it's more of an ask for the Liberal Democrats to win the other seat. That will require not only disaffected Tories to go to the Liberal Democrats, but also Labour voters to lend them their vote tactically in the hope of giving Boris Johnson a bloody nose. I think that seems a more difficult ask, and if it is to happen, that's when we know that Boris Johnson is in real trouble, because if he was to lose both of these seats overnight, he's going to wake up tomorrow with a real headache, because you could not be a Tory MP with any kind of slim majority and feel confident about being re-elected with Boris Johnson as your leader. So I think the Lib Dems is the more interesting question there.
Luckily, we've got a long period to discuss all the newspapers at 11, isn't it? Because we're running out of time. I'm just going to show you the pictures that we were going to talk about the airport strikes, the possibility and the timing of it. The Guardian, airport staff vote to strike as the threat of disruption widens, saying that, according to the GMB, 95% of those who voted said they were prepared to strike, and that was on a turnout of more than 80%. That's genuinely overwhelming. And then the Metro as well, terminal chaos, summer holidays threat as BA strikes add to airport mayhem. Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, the columnist Carol Malone and the editor of The Courier, David Clegg. Welcome back to both of you. Keeping an eye, obviously, on those by-elections. But in the meantime, David, let's kick off with The Telegraph, which is a story about public sector pensioners, not so much the state pension. Do explain for us if you can.
Yeah, this is an interesting little nugget that's on the front of the Telegraph tomorrow, and it's about public sector pensions and how much they're going to go up by. They say that it will be 10%, which, given the context of what we've just been talking about what workers are getting, what is seeming like a reasonable pay rise for people, we've got some places where there's no pay rises or just a couple of percent. The reason why this is going to happen is related to the triple lock of the state pension, which, as we know, means that it will rise by the greatest thing, which is going to be inflation this time round, which means that the state pension is likely to go up by 10% in September. And the public sector pensions, which are a very significant outlay for the government, are tied to that. So they'll have to go up that as well. So it does give the prospect of retired civil servants, retired teachers, retired NHS workers getting more extra money than their former colleagues who are still at work, perhaps, in the pay settlement. And given that squeeze on public finances and the fact that there's already, I think, a feeling in some quarters that public sector pensions are very generous in comparison to their private sector counterparts, it could be something that becomes a source of tension, I think. So it's quite a little interesting story in the Telegraph tomorrow.
Sorry to rush you, you've only got under a minute left. And Carol, while the PM made it to Rwanda before any of the asylum seekers that he wants to send there, the Daily Express picks up the story about the involvement of the European Court of Human Rights.
Yeah, this is an ECHR judge called Latif Husanov, and he says he's criticising the European Court, saying that the name of the judge who made the decision to ground that plane should be published. He's saying this is a public decision, so the judge should be named. And there were lots of speculation last week who the judge was. They thought it could be a Russian judge, then they thought it could be a Hungarian judge, it could have been a judge from Liechtenstein, but no one would tell us who it was. And we actually should know the name of the judge who overturned the decisions of the highest courts in this land.